He, theys, she, theys, and all the other theys. Oye, oye, oye. What? Yeah, ladies and gentle limbs. I'm a little mole. That's how we're gonna start this. Alright, you can hear the game. Last week, we, by last week I mean last night. We got picked up by by good guy drugs, because they don't want to sell addictive drugs, they want to sell party drugs that are not addictive but still give you the high. And they're also supporting what I guess is supposed to be a good guy corpo. We hung out with them. We met a lot of hot characters, including a Swede. We found out they were making addictive versions of the drug they were working on. We burnt down their warehouse, they killed our Swede, and now we're hunting for the ultimate tracker to track Mishka, who is not our boyfriend. We just constantly think about him and want to spend time with him and have an emotional commitment attached to him. A newfound determination ballooned in Sasha's chest. Dima, you come around once we talk to him a bit more, don't worry. You leave that part to us. Pavel nodded and glanced towards Indigo and Vadim.
Yeah.
We should get him ready for tomorrow. Vadim, are you able to be on standby if Sasha needs any help? Of course, I've got your back, Sasha. I'll help you get set up then after that. But I need some time to myself for a bit. Indigo paused, her fingers playing with the hem of her skirt. Sasha, I believe in you if you really think you can do this. I'll help because I'd rather know you're safe, but please try to understand that this is a risk in all... that there is a risk in all of this. I got distracted. She tried her best to smile, then turned to find some spare equipment for him. After all, he was going to need it tomorrow. Alright. Oh, let me set this up so I can keep an eye on my advert. Okay. Alright, Sasha, can you hear me? Yeah, I can. These things are pretty high quality for being so small. Sasha brought a hand to his ear and touched the tiny earbud that was snug in place. Don't touch it. We don't want to look suspicious or anything. Sasha recoiled quickly and put his hand down at his side. Standing in the shadows of Strexa Tower, Sasha looked up to take it in. It wasn't long ago he'd been here with Mishka. As he stared, he realized there was no turning back sank. The realization that there was no turning back sank in. What? You shut the fuck up. You know what? Subscribe to me, give me monies. I'll take reading lessons. I'll learn read good. Yeah, you don't count. You're my sugar daddy. Even if they were to find Mishka, what then? It was the thought Sasha had pushed to the furthest part of his mind. He'd cross the bridge when the time came.
Mishka.
Hang on, Mishka. I'll find you.
I was sleeping on my deathbed even when I paid.
You paid for half your utilities. Still being in the city back memories. It felt familiar, which was more than he could say about the past few days. Sasha stood still and soaked in the atmosphere. The smell of fresh bread wafted out of a bakery nearby, and he closed his eyes, inhaling deeply. The sound of people talking on phones, kids running and playing, even the emergency vehicles that roared past. Everything felt so alive. Sasha felt like he'd just woken up from a long dream and his weary body was finally feeling relief. But the feeling didn't last. Alright, so remind me what I should be looking for? Well, Natalie would never live in an apartment, at least nothing above the second floor. She's a huge penny pincher, a total bloodhound for coupons. She wouldn't live somewhere this expensive. Oh, she has a bike with a pink Pretty Kitty sticker on it. Indigo, I need more to go on than that. I know, I'm just feeling a little frazzled right now. Are you okay? Not really, but staying busy helps.
Okay.
Okay, well, if Natalie would live around here, we better head to the bus stop. I'm not gonna pry. Yesterday was hard. That's a good place to start. Sasha glanced around and eyed the passerby as they went about their normal business. Subway's pretty packed around this time, and I don't want people to think I'm talking to myself. Sasha started in the direction of the closest bus stop. He hurried across the street. He lifted one hand to shield his brows from the sun as he looked around for the right bus line. Against the lit-up ad of the bus line's bench, a tall figure named Slipback was against the fiberglass. There's a pimp named Slickback! Do you not see this pimp on screen? They were adorned in bright, vibrant neons and a large-brimmed hat. Sasha slowed his gaze, narrowing on the figure. I've seen them around the city before. Oh, that's Neo. They're one of our informants. They're sure to have some kind of info about Natalie. They kind of know everything. It's a little scary. Sasha took a deep breath and started towards the neon cowboy. Wait, Sasha. Sasha stopped in his tracks and spun around, looking deflated. What is it? I was so close. Do you have any money on your C-card? They're kind of freelance, if that makes sense. Sasha's arms crossed over his chest, back still to the stranger. Why didn't you... Okay, no, I don't have any money. Just give it a shot. Worst they could do is turn you down. Sasha groaned and turned back around. He has done a 360 and walked away like twice. The bright stranger tilted their hat up just enough to settle their eyes on Sasha.
So...
Hey. Hey there. Looking for something? Oh my god, they're so cute. Sasha inhaled slowly through his nose and put on the most convincing smile he could, doing his best to ignore the voice in his ear. He uncrossed his arms and sunk both hands into his pockets. Maybe, I heard you might know a thing or two about where I might be able to find someone. This friend of yours got a name? Natalie, I'm looking for her. Do you know where she is or not? Now that's a name I haven't heard in a hot minute. Yeah, I might have seen her somewhere in this city. Now, what do you have for me? They don't seem to be working pro bono on this one. Oh. What about an IOU? Staring at Sasha with amusement and a skeptical grin, the stranger chuckled and tipped their hat. Everything comes at a price in love. Your reputation is at the zero right now. So what do you have that I want? Well, how do you know you have what I want? A bit cocky, aren't you? Okay, listen. I've never met you, but I know exactly who you are. Nothing happens in the city without me knowing. Okay, fine. What about Dima? You know him, right? Careful, Sasha. In mild surprise, the vibrantly dressed stranger leaned back and smirked, hands on their hips. The shadow from their hat kept their eyes shielded from the sun. Oh boy, you drive a hard bargain with that name. He'll owe me, Willie. How do I know your IOU's legit? Sasha, you can't promise that. You said you know me, right? Because if so, you'd know I'm a nobody. Sasha fished into his pockets and pulled out a C-card. He walked over to the ticket machine lining the walls and scanned the card. All routes appeared on screen, including two that even Sasha hadn't seen before. No matter how many routes Sasha selected, there was no charge listed. Neo's hand raised and rubbed their jaw with a smile. How does a nobody get clearance like that? Dima updated my card himself. Is that proof enough for your IOU? Oh, now. He's got some spice to him, does he? Alright, boy, you've got a deal. Sasha shook Neo's outstretched hand with a smirk. She's been spotted in a bar on the south side of the city. This real dive. There's a 24-hour laundromat across the street. That's a little vague, don't you think? So is the promise of an IOU. You can figure it out from there. Thanks. Oh, and Sasha? Hair on the back of Sasha's neck stood on end. Make sure you deliver on that IOU. You don't want to be on my bad side. Neo said this with a smile as wide and harmless as the one before it. Neo tipped their hat to Sasha a final time and resumed leaning against the fiberglass behind him. Sasha stepped off away before speaking in a hushed tone. Indigo, you still there? Did you get all that? Yep, checking routes now. The 12 should get me there. Looks like you'll be taking the 12. There's one leaving now if you catch it. He boarded the bus just in time and quickly moved to take a seat near the back. He stared out the window, fingers running over his phone screen. The south side, huh? Oh, that's right. Hey, Indigo, I'm going to text a friend of mine to help. They know the south side. Okay, be careful, I'll be here. Glanced at his phone and unlocked the screen. Boop boop. Hey, heading south side, are you busy? Nah, I'm free. You coming to... I don't remember what voice I gave them. Nah, I'm free. You coming to see me? I'm out on business. Want to join? Could use your brain. There's something I want to talk about, too, if that's cool. I got nothing better to do. To be honest, where do you want to meet? I'm taking the 12 to the transit center. Meet me there. The 12? You come from the tower? Yeah, I'm coming up. I'll catch you up when I get there. Sense of relief washed over him, knowing a friend would be waiting when he got off the bus. He wasn't in this alone. They're the ultimate enemy, though. That's the problem. I can't make the enemy stand user joke with this game because everyone is the enemy stand user. When the bus came to a stop and the squealing of the brake ceased, the bus's doors opened. Sasha did his best to hurry off. He immediately looked around for Orisha's familiar face.
Hey.
Sasha, here. Sasha turned around and spotted them. Good. It's glad to see your face. Oh, they're cute too. Sasha, you're into so many cuties today. Sasha chuckled and walked up to them. Orisha put their arm around Sasha's shoulders and raised a brow. What's going on with you lately? I haven't heard from you. I'll explain that in a bit, but first... Sasha offered a weak smile and returned the gesture, sliding his arm around her back as they headed down the street. I gotta find someone. All the information I have is her name, and that she lives on the south side, and she rides a black motorcycle. Think you can help? Tell them she's mega hot too. Sasha closed his eyes for a moment before turning back to Orisha. Damn, that's not a lot. At all. So, what's the name? Natalie. Orisha stopped walking for the moment, arms falling from Sasha's side. Serious? No joke. What? What is it? Natalie? Dude, she's my self-defense teacher. Rides a black bike and all. Wow, really? Sasha, good call on your friend is amazing. No shit, really? Can you take me to her? Yeah, she's got her own studio. It's under a bar. A little sketchy, but you know how it is. I could literally kiss you right now. No. Instead, how about you fill me in on why you haven't been answering my calls and texts? Sasha bit the inside of his mouth and sighed, knowing he'd have to sooner or later. Alright, I'll explain on the way.
Sasha.
Mishka's missing? And you got jumped in an alley? Sasha, that's incredibly fucked up. You're in some real deep shit. Tell me about it. I'm trying to set it straight, though. Natalie's our only real hope of finding Mishka. Orisha shook their head. I know you're feeling like you should have to do all this, but you don't. I mean, this is so much for one person. That's why I called you. I can't do this alone. Sasha sighed and looked at the row of motorcycles parked outside of the building. His eyes immediately spotted the pink Pretty Kitty sticker slapped onto the side of the bike.
So
I want to check. Oh, sorry, I forgot where my mouse is. Okay, good. I'm just making sure everything's running. So this is it, huh? She runs a gym under a bar. Yep, best self-defense class I've ever taken. She's probably inside. There's her bike. Okay, yeah, that makes sense now I think about it. Yes. Sasha leaned his weight against the door until it eased open. The air inside was warm and smoky, neither of which Sasha was bothered by. He followed behind Arisha, glancing at the many patrons they passed. A rugged-looking man in a tattered coat crouched against the wall, a tourniquet wrapped tight around his bicep. The woman next to him was in the middle of wrapping a tourniquet around her own arm, while her friend beside her flicked at a filled syringe. Ari, is it okay for them to be shooting up, like, right here? Sasha blinked in surprise, her voice barely a whisper. Risha took a deep breath and guided Sasha towards a hallway. It's better if they do it here. We have medical volunteers around. And we can take care of them if something happens. It's not much, but it's better than being out there alone in the city. Sasha looked over his shoulder to the patrons at the bar and noticed not a single person sat alone. So like a rehab center? Think of it more like a halfway house. A lot of folks come through here don't even have C-cards, so affording rehab is definitely out of the question. It's better if they're here though. We can look after them. Better than being in the city alone anyway. Sasha followed Arisha through the tight... Oh, give me a second. I'm defending pizza. Sasha followed Risha through the tight hallway and down a flight of stairs lined with neon lights. The door at the end of the hall had no sign, just an intercom next to it and a large steel handle. Arisha's nails clicked against the intercom's number pad. The door buzzed in response and opened. Arisha motioned towards the handle. Sasha grabbed it and stepped inside. It was quiet, with the exception of a distant radio playing. Rapid footsteps. Wait. No. Paw steps approached. The jingle of a collar was loud and clear. Uh-oh. Sasha, look out. A dog the size of a bear flew through the air and crashed into Sasha's body. Meatball! Boof indeed, Meatball. Tail wagging furiously behind him, the big beast knocked Sasha to the ground and stood over him, panting. Sasha groaned and turned his head, trying to avoid the onslaught of dog kisses he was being assaulted with. What the? Meatball, dude. Sasha couldn't help but laugh. Soon a tall woman stepped into the room, heels clicking. She quirked a brow, hands set on her hips.
All right, Meatball, that's enough. Come, boy.
Boof. The dog gleefully bounded towards her, a slobbery mess splashing along the floor as he did. Be right back, Sasha. I have to, take care of something, yeah? Risha helped Sasha up off the ground and brushed off the front of his shirt. Arisha didn't expect you until tomorrow. Is everything good? One second. You ever try to tell someone a joke and they don't get it, so you have to like double down on it in such a ridiculous way? If they don't get it at that point, there's no point. Yeah, this is my friend Sasha. He said he'd been trying to find you. The woman's smoky eyes glanced between the two, eyeing Sasha with what could only be described as judgmental stare. Boof. Was he? Sasha groaned again and rubbed at his arm. He wiped the dog drool onto his sweats. Ugh. Natalie crossed her arms over her chest. Alright, Sasha, was it? Why are you looking for me, huh? Dima. Natalie uncrossed her arms and put her hand up. She shook her head dismissively. No, I don't want to hear it. Arisha looked between the two, stunned. Wait, Natalie. I don't want to hear it. Go back home, both of you. I'm closing the place up for the night.
Seriously?
What? No, you didn't even hear me out. Sasha's heart dropped into his stomach. This is their last chance. Their last hope.
Listen.
Look, I've told Dima too many times to count. I'm not going back. This isn't about Dima. Sasha's stomach twisted, the prickle of heat at the back of his neck and his hair standing on end. If he didn't act now, if he couldn't say something, anything, then... It's Mishka. Natalie paused. I don't know if you know him. Hell, I don't really know anything about the people Mishka knows, but... He was kidnapped. Misha gasped lightly, their hand raised to cover their mouth. Sasha's heart was racing. And yeah, Dima sent me. He sent me to find you because he said you're the only person who could help us find him.
Please.
Please hear me out at least. Silence filled the space. Natalie stared at the wall for a moment, still in the middle of putting on her jacket. With a sigh, she eased the fabric off her shoulder. I trained him, you know. Mishka, I mean. That kid, when I met him, he was quiet and reserved. Yeah, he was like that when we met, but now I can't get him to shut up. Natalie shook her head with a slight smile. He was a good kid. He did anything I told him to, and he never complained. He was so focused all the time, like he had to prove something. Who took him? She shifted her gaze towards Sasha. Risha stood by quietly, gripping their own arm for comfort. Meatball patted over and bumped their hand with his nose. Ecto. At least that's what everyone seems to think. Of fucking course. Natalie clicked her tongue. Balling her hand into a fist, she brought her fist to her mouth and grimaced. Knew that shit would come to a head someday. Everyone seems to think that you're the only one who can help. I can't let her say no. This is the only way I can help.
Listen.
This isn't so black and white. Sasha, this is a complicated clusterfuck. I can't go back there. I can't be around all that. I'm not asking you to live there. I'm asking you to please help me save Mishka. Natalie's face twisted into a frown, and she turned, setting both hands on her hips. Fucking hell, god damn it. She sharply kicked an empty crate nearby, cracking it. It tumbled into the floor, splintered and broken. Meatball whined softly, his tail slowly wagging. Risha stepped forward and reached out for Natalie's arm. It's okay, let's all just calm down a bit. It's Roman, that motherfucker. Sasha tried to process what Natalie was saying. Who the hell is Roman? Natalie eyed Sasha's confused face and huffed, a hand running through her hair. The most dangerous man you'll hopefully never meet. Sasha's body was tense. What do you know about Ecto and Strexa? Nothing. I literally know nothing. Mishka probably thought this was for the Mishka probably thought this was for the best. How the hell am I supposed to help when I don't know what's happening? Boof. Yeah, you don't know what's happening, but Meatball's helping. Natalie pinched the bridge of her nose. Blah. Arisha. Yeah? The hanging garden in the garage needs some more work. Think you can have it at it for a bit? Arisha blinked and glanced towards the garage door, then back at Natalie. Yeah, sure. The one for the fundraiser, right? That's the one. Risha started for the door, only pausing to look at Sasha once before they left the room. Meatball eased up from the spot on the couch and followed Risha to the garage. You gonna come help me? Boof. Once they were gone, Natalie looked at Sasha and motioned to the couch. Sit. Sasha blinked and reluctantly sat down. Okay. Taking a seat, Sasha watched as Natalie dragged a stool over. Fundraiser? Yeah, Ari and I are trying to jumpstart some community projects with our nonprofit. But since we aren't big business, we need fundraisers. Sasha rubbed his thumb against his wrist. Alright, you want to know what's going on? Strap in. I used to work for Strexa, though it didn't look like it does now. It was smaller then. Dima and Roman were at the top. They ran the company and footed the bill. I never liked Roman, but Dima followed him around like a puppy. Dima wasn't cut from the same cloth, though. He at least talked to us in the halls and break room. Wait, so this Roman guy worked at Strexa? He used to, before the split. The jobs they wanted done were shitty ones, but the pay was great and I thought I was helping Sabina. Sasha chewed at the inside of his lip as he thought back on what Pavel and Vadim said. Strex offers us the kind of stability we couldn't otherwise have on the outside.
Well,
With how fast they were expanding, they needed bigger margins to fund everything, but the politicians weren't really on board. So they turned to a much more profitable market. Drugs.
that's right.
Drugs. Bingo. You're catching on. I get it, though. I had to start dealing just to afford my rent. Yeah, well, it was Roman's idea. Natalie leaned her elbows on her thighs, fingers crossed against her lips. So, of course, Strexa grew tenfold. But it grew at the expense of its people. The city was hooked, and we now have a real addiction problem. Sounds like that was kind of inevitable. It was. And being around it all the time at Strexa was terrible for my own recovery. Sasha's eyes widened at that statement. If I didn't have her, I don't think I would have recovered. Her? Sasha watched Natalie's expression soften as she stared at the ground. This dorky, preppy IT girl who just broke down my barriers like they didn't exist. She's the one who helped me stay on track despite being surrounded by all the drugs Strexa was engineering. Because of her, I had this idea. I wanted to build a recovery center for the city so that anyone could have support when they needed it. It was the least Strexa could do after creating and enabling so many addicts. Dima started spending more time with us, so I slipped the idea to him, and he was on board. He helped me work on the logistics of it, since I couldn't do all that work alone. He promised he'd do whatever he could to make it happen, but... She stopped speaking, her gaze darkening. But...
Ugh.
When Dima brought the idea to Roman, he immediately shot it down. Not just that, he completely convinced Dima it was a bad idea. Dima had the audacity to tell me that the recovery center would severely impact their business. Well, I talk about helping the city and they just... This is a real way to help the actual people of Sobania. Sasha's lips parted to speak, but he couldn't find words to say. I had to get out of there. Roman had Dima wrapped around his finger, and I wasn't going to get through to either of them. Sasha felt his heart begin to sink. No wonder she won't go back. I don't know what to do. Wasn't long after I left the split happened. Heard it was bad from what Indigo said. I'd say fuck it, let them tear each other apart, but they'd put the city in the middle of it all and we'd get fucked. Sasha gripped his arm and stared at the ground. Hey, Jelly! You haven't missed much. We just found Natalie and her dog Meatball, who's a Burmese mountain dog, if I believe correctly. But he boofs constantly, so it's really cute. Natalie eyed him for a moment. She sighed and put her hands on her knees with a soft slap. I mean, I guess you missed a lot of plot points that were obvious. The Roman and Dima used to fuck. They worked together, then they split because Roman was evil and Dima was less evil. Don't know what that word would be. Anyway, I assumed you worked at Strexa when you mentioned Dima. But, no offense. You're looking a little too busted to be an agent. No offense. I'm just stuck in the middle of it all, I guess. His gaze dropped to his bandaged wrists. Natalie pursed her lips with a small smile before taking a deep breath. Give you some time to think about it. Sasha's head lifted, his eyes lightening up. I'll consider it for Mishka. That's it. Not for Dima, not for Strexa. You hear me? Sasha nodded furiously, his chest swelling to the possibility of this not being all for nothing. Yeah, of course. She tapped at her ear and motioned towards Sasha's. Indigo in there? She was, but she hasn't been back since we walked in. I see. Natalie stood from her stool. Wait, but what am I supposed to do in the meantime? I suggest you go back to Strexa, where it's relatively safe. If I decide to show up, I'll show up. Sasha wasn't sure if this was a win or not. Natalie said she'd think on it, so that's gotta be a step in the right direction, right? Sasha rubbed the back of his neck and glanced towards the exit. To be honest, the more I get into the game, the less I like Arisha. Like, I half expected her to stab us in the back for some reason. Like, I just got bad vibes. What? Say it again now? Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, them. They gave me bad vibes. I slipped. Terrible at this sometimes. If I call Dima for a ride, if I do it in front of Natalie, I'm gonna get yelled at. I also like this Mike Tyson poster in the background. That is also transparency. Risha walked out from the office, a clipboard and a checklist in hand. Meatball was right on her heels. Hey, Natalie. Sasha, are you cool with me grabbing Natalie for a second? We were just finishing up anyways. It's cool, were you thinking of hanging around? I was, if that's okay. Are you able to grab a ride from someone? Guess it can't be helped. Yeah, I'll figure it out. Are you sure? Like, super sure? Yeah, I'm good. Okay, take care of yourself, okay? I'm just one phone call away if you need anything. Thanks, Ari. Natalie opened the office door and motioned for Arisha to follow her. Sasha, I can call you a taxi if you need. No, really, it's fine. I figured I'd just call Dima. God knows he owes me.
Okay.
Alright, well, the front door will auto-lock when you leave, so make sure he's out front before you do. Sasha?
Don't let him in my gym. Thanks.
Natalie and Arisha disappeared in the office, Meatball trailing not far behind. Sasha was suddenly alone in the large gym space. He eyed his phone for a moment. Was he really going to ask Dima for a ride? Lifting the phone to his face, he waited for the other line. Yet. Yes? Here's your coffee, Mr. Largo. I love Doggo's name, Meatball. Yeah, he's a cutie. Honestly, didn't expect him to answer so quickly.
So...
Hey, can you... God, this is embarrassing. Come get me. The buses are slow around this time. Alright, did you find her? Yeah, but you failed to mention how much she hates you. I didn't want to complicate things. Anyways, I'll be there shortly. Send me the pen. Okay, but hurry, I'm kinda cold. Outside of Natalie's training gym, Sasha waited near the curb. He occasionally checked his phone for the time and peered over his shoulder every now and again. After everything that had happened, he wanted to be cautious. The sound of items clattered around, blared in his singular earblood, and startled him. He almost forgotten he was wearing it.
Hi.
So, what? He's got an eye patch and a prosthetic foot? Yes, he's got an eye patch and a prosthetic foot, and I imagine we're going to find out Roman took his foot and eye because he wanted to be a dick. That's apparently Roman's motivations, is he wants to be a dick. I know it's maximizing profits through drug trading and addiction loops, but, I mean, he also seems to just like being a dick. Hey, Sasha, still there? Yeah, heading back now. Sorry about that, it's complicated. How did everything go? Good, I think, I don't know. She said she would think about it, so I guess that's better than nothing. I'm not sure if pressing her further would help our cause. She said she'd think about it? That's great news. That's great news. Yeah? Oh yeah, do you need me to send someone over for you? Or can you take the bus back? I just called Dima to come get me, so I'm covered. You called Dima, like, just to pick you up? Why do you say it like that? It's just kind of surprising. He doesn't go out often. Definitely not just to pick someone up. Well, I think he owes me anyways. Thought Natalie was talking. You wouldn't have even made it past the door. Indigo giggled through the speaker. The crinkle of a chip bag opening could be heard. You got that right. She's not too happy with him, though she still cares a lot. It's complicated. A sleek black car rounded the corner of the street and headed towards the curb. The vehicle was surprisingly quiet. Okay, that car looks too nice to belong to anyone but Dima.
Okay.
I think my ride's here, so I'm gonna hang up. Oh yeah, of course. Just call me if you need anything. You probably won't, but yeah. Ha! Once the car parked, the rear window rolled down. Inside the back seat sat Dima with his legs crossed. He waved Sasha in with one hand, his phone in the other. Ready to go? What if I said I wasn't? Sasha pocketed the earbud and reached for the door handle of the expensive car. Dima stared for an extended second or two, clearly confused. Please get in the car. So bossy. He climbed in and closed the door behind him. And the smell of the new car was strong, and not a speck of dirt could be found on the black interior. The driver made no move to pull away from the curb, even with the sound of the doors locking. How did she seem? I mean, how's she doing, from what you could tell? She seemed fine, I guess, but, she didn't seem happy to hear your name. That doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. You really pissed her off. I made her promises I couldn't keep. I promised her that we, Strexa, would work towards helping the people of Sabania her way. I promised we would try our best. And I promised that I wouldn't let certain interpersonal affairs get in the way of that. I take it those affairs got in the way of that, huh? She told me about Roman. Dima stared out the window for a moment, the light of the city's neon glow reflected in his golden gaze. God. Is that the alternative title of this game? Golden Gaze? Without another moment to spare, the car pulled away and darted down the street. I'm working on making it up to her. Maybe he really is trying. He seems genuine. Sasha watched Dima in silence. His gaze shifted towards the rear view, where he caught the driver glancing at them. The driver promptly looked away. Sasha smiled to himself and he turned his head towards Dima, who leaned closer to the man, clearing his throat and lowering his voice.
Seriously?
Isn't having a personal driver a bit much? You have a lot of questions. I just want to know why you have a fancy car that you can't drive. I can drive, I simply choose not to. Why? This car is dope. Yes, it is dope. I don't know my way around this part of the city. A driver is just easier. The GPS embedded into the car's dashboard chimed, signaling their turn was approaching. Okay, so you got a driver and a GPS. You can't tell me that's not excessive. I like to know where I'm headed. Dima turned his head towards Sasha, his face heated up with a slight red tint. The driver couldn't stop himself from smiling while the car drove down the street, its engine nearing silent. I'm just saying, I get around fine and I don't have a car. Well, you grew up downtown, right? I did not. Why are you being so judgmental? Despite his question, Dima's tone had a hint of playfulness in it. He shifted his legs and sat up in the leather seat. Oh, clearly not. You probably grew up... Wait, don't tell me, I got this. Dima quirked a brow and watched Sasha curiously, a gentle smile still on his face as he did.
Okay.
You grew up in Belmont Estates, probably gated, 4-car garage, probably had like a tennis court on site. Maybe you had maids, and clearly drivers. Oh, you also had a dog named Winston. Am I close? In a fit of laughter, Dima covered his mouth with his hand. He shook his head a little, waiting for the laughter to pass. The redness in his cheeks intensified. Almost. 5-car garage, and the dog's name was Sheldon. Bazinga. Sasha's smug grin turned to laughter. The feeling was almost foreign. Sheldon? Seriously? Not at all. I wasn't allowed to have animals, truthfully. Allowed? The phone in Sasha's pocket started to buzz. He fished it out and checked to see a notification on the lock screen. Lane Bakery, your order is ready for pickup. The smile on Sasha's face started to slip away. Fuck, I totally forgot. Dima watched Sasha's expression shift, and he glanced down at Sasha's phone. Is everything alright? The car slowed to a stop at a red light. The sound of the engine almost non-existent while the car idled. Yeah, I'm fine. He sighed as the hand holding his phone fell to his lap. Are you sure? Are you sure about that? Not that I have to answer that if you don't want to. Give me a second. Why isn't...
Are you sure
There
about
it is. I was like, why isn't it going off? And that was... I like how close that was to Sasha's face. Every year I ordered my mom these pierogies from the shop at the market. They're to celebrate her and my dad's anniversary. I completely forgot because, well, you know why. I've never forgotten them before. They're probably going to get tossed. Maybe I can call Ari to grab them? Well, how far is the shop from here? Sasha looked up at Dima. Oh, it's just at the corner of West and It's not far. We can stop by. It seems important to you. Sasha's eyes lit up in surprise. Dima leaned forward in the seat and tapped at the driver's shoulder. With a nod at the man, the driver turned and headed down the street once the light turned green.
All right.
We'll stop by the market, pick up your order, drop them off where you need, then we'll head back to Strexa. She'll probably be at work. My mom, I mean. We could drop it off on her porch, though. She'll get them. I'm glad she'll be able to get them. Sasha sighed in relief and leaned his shoulder against Dima's. Dima cleared his throat a little and tugged at the collar of his sweater. What's this market of yours like? A bit dumbfounded, Sasha stared at the other man for a moment. His agape mouth shifted into a wide smile, his head shaking with disbelief. Oh, you're going to love it. There are so many food vendors and little trinket kiosks just off the main road. So there are all sorts of good smells. Dima watched Sasha's look of wonder, his expression soft. Can't believe you've never been there. But also, I totally can. Do you even come downtown at all? Dima chuckled and shook his head. You'd be surprised how little time I spend in the city. Well, lucky for you, I know my way around. Was it long before the driver pulled the car over to the side of the road? Thank you, Colbert. We shouldn't be long. Sasha opened his door and climbed out of the car. He took a few steps towards the hanging lanterns and bright neon signs, feeling a sense of familiarity settling in. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. Spinning on his heels, he spread his arms wide and grinned as Dima stepped out of the car. It's great, right? Look at all this food. The smell of fried street food really did put Sasha at ease. The nagging anxiety on the back of his mind was always present, but it was much quieter than tonight. Oh man! Rib sweaters! look really good drawn. I wish they looked that good in real life. Dima stepped around the vehicle, his hands clasped behind him. His gaze swept over the overhead lights, the crowd of people flushed together and weaving into the market, and the sheer look of contentment on Sasha's face. He couldn't help but smile. Alright, where's the pierogi shop? My favorite burger joint is around here.
Sasha.
It's right next door, relax. Sasha waved his hand dismissively before heading into the crowd. As excited as it all was to be back in the city, he still made sure to stay close to Dima. Is it always this crowded? Dima squeezed between throngs of people they passed, making sure Sasha was in sight. It's a market, it's always packed. Have you ever shopped in a street market before? Actually, you don't have to answer that. As they walked, he glanced over at the stalls to see if anyone caught his eye. It smells interesting. It smells great, you mean? Then Sasha spotted it. He slapped Dima's ass with the back of his hand, I know it says arm, to a shabby restaurant nestled between two other food vendors. The door had a metal folding gate pushed to the side. Dima brushed his arm where Sasha had swatted him and glanced towards the hole in the wall. It's a bit small, isn't it? Would he even be able to get through the door? All the best food is made in small places. Everyone knows that. Sasha, I'm not. Come on! Before Dima could protest any further, Sasha took hold of the sweater sleeve and tugged him along. Dima glanced down at his sleeve, barely suppressing a smile. Okay. An involuntary smile spread on Sasha's face when the two walked in. A worker rounded the corner from the back room and approached the cash register. Sasha, is that you? I almost forgot your face.
Seriously?
Oh, come on, it hasn't been that long. Time is relative and all that. What can I get you and your friend? Ah, jeez. The cashier raised an inquisitive brow as they looked over at Dima, then back at Sasha. A sly grin spread across their face. Leaning closer to Sasha, the cashier whispered, "Who's your friend? He's hot." Sasha scoffed, though his face felt warm. Oh my god, go get me a burger. Capitalism wins again! With a shrug, the cashier plugged in Sasha's regular order and glanced up towards Dima. What can I get you, big guy?
No.
Oh no, that won't be necessary. Just give him the same thing. Dima turned towards Sasha, his brow furrowed with confusion.
Sasha,
that's not. Alright, coming right up. Scan your payment, whatever, and grab your fountain drink from over there. You know how it goes. With that, the cashier walked around back towards the fryers. They swiftly set to work on the 2 meals. 2 deep-fried burgers coming up! Sasha took the cups after paying for the burgers and responded under his breath, passing the cup to Dima. One of us knows how it goes anyway. Dima glanced at the cup now and hand inside. Alright, show me how this works. You're like an alien from another planet. Here. Sasha pushed his cup onto the machine's tab. Of course, this is one of the few restaurants left that hadn't upgraded to a touch screen. If you push it too long, it'll spill over the top. Think you can manage that, yeah? Alright, I get it. I don't have much experience with these things. Dima nudged Sasha out of the way and thrust the cup under the nozzle. When the drink spurted into it, he nodded. See, there, whoa now. That filled more quickly than Dima expected. If he had a nickel for every time that happened. I can't believe he's never used a drink machine before. It's kind of cute though. Slowly putting his cup from the machine, he was careful not to let any spill over the edge while he reached for a lid. Sasha just snickered as he popped a lid onto his own cup. 2 onion deaths, no lettuce with medium fries, come and get it. 2 what?
See ya.
Thank you. Sasha grabbed the large to-go bag containing his order and started for the door. Dima, who was still attempting to put the lid on his cup, called out to Sasha as he headed out the door. Hold on. Securing the cup, Dima grabbed a straw and followed. The cashier waved goodbye as the door chimed behind the pair. When he got to Sasha, he pulled the paper off his straw and stuck it through the drink. Sasha already had his head deep in the bag and was shoveling handfuls of greasy fries into his mouth. What? They're so good! Dima smiled and turned his head, glanced towards the market at the ever-expansive rows of vendors. You said the other shop is near here, right? Yeah, it's right over there. Sasha crumpled the top of his food bag closed. He took a long, exaggerated slurp through the straw and popped his lid with a loud smack. Guess I was hungry. This place has the best fries. Dima took a tiny sip of drink in hand and followed after Sasha, who led them through another door, not 2 stores away from the burger joint. Sasha pulled the entry open with a soft jingle. The shop was compact, quaint, and smelled of bread and sweets. An older one with a long pink nails looked up from her magazine. Hey, here to pick up. Oh, Sasha, it's over on that table, dearie. The woman took an extra long look at Dima, her eyebrows lifted before she turned back to her magazine. Sasha wiped his mouth as he walked over to the neatly wrapped cardboard box on the table nearby. He looked down at the ribbon, holding it together. A small note was written on the top. Happy anniversary, Mom, from Sasha and Mishka. Is there a problem, dearie? No, it's perfect, thanks again. Sasha shook his head, offering a weak smile. Dima gazed down at the box at the top of the table, eyeing the note. He watched Sasha's expression, concern on his face. Mishka. Do you want me to carry it? Your hands are a bit full. Sasha looked up at Dima and then down at the drink and greasy bag he was holding. Oh yeah, I don't want to drop them. Dima nodded and scooped the box up under his arm, being careful not to jostle it too much. He made sure to secure it in his grip. Well, alright then. You have a good night, Sasha. Tell your mom I said hi. I will. Have a good night. Ma'am. Oh-ho! The shopkeep fanned herself with her magazine while the two made it for the exit. Sasha leaned back to the front door and pushed it open, holding it wide enough for Dima. The bell overhead jingled once more. Sasha was quiet as the two stepped out into the night market. You alright?
Huh?
Me? Yeah, I'm just peachy. I have this. Dug his burger out of the paper bag, skillfully unwrapping it with one hand. He wasted no time taking a bite. How did you... Dima chuckled, glancing down at the box under his arm. A subtle pang of guilt pulling at his heartstrings. Maybe he doesn't want to talk about it then.
Alright.
Anyways, we should get this to your mother and then head back to Strexa. I've been away a little longer than comfortable. Do you do anything but work? Yeah, I came out to night markets to order burgers and pick up dessert orders. Order the best burgers. Here, try. Before he finished speaking, Sasha had already lifted his burger to Dima's face. Dima reeled back, wrinkling his nose. I am not going to eat your burger, plus my hands are full. Come on, my car's on the way. That's why I'm being so generous and offering mine. Just bite it.
No.
I don't think I noticed that black eye before this. I'm walking away now. With the box and his drink, Dima headed in the direction they came, glancing over his shoulder every few minutes to make sure Sasha was close behind. How can you just shoot down my kindness? I'm being extra kind right now. Yes, noted. Colbert is on. Dima stopped in his tracks. We didn't get Colbert anything. After shaking his head, Dima started walking again a little faster this time. Luckily, the car was straight ahead. Hey! He jogged a little to catch up, his burger already back in his mouth. When both of them hopped into the car, the driver started the engine back up and pulled away from the market. Thank you for your patience, Colbert. We were a little sidetracked. Not a problem, sir. We heading back to HQ? Yeah, after we make a quick drop-off. Buckled in, Dima set the box down between them and set his drink into the cup holder. His eye where Sasha's burger had been. He ate that so fast. Sasha crumpled the wrapper up in his hand, rubbing the ketchup from his mouth with his wrist. He glanced at the bag and then back down over to Dima. Well, Ketchup, you haven't touched your burger yet. Reaching into the bag, he pulled out Dima's burger, unwrapped it, and held it out to him. I suppose it couldn't hurt to try. Make it sound like I'm poisoning you. Wouldn't be the first time someone's tried. Despite his opposition, Dima leaned over and took the burger. He eyed the way the mayo squeezed out from between the greasy patty and the way too thick slice of tomato. Don't just stare at it. Dima brought the burger to his mouth and reluctantly took a bite. Almost immediately, his face twisted into disdain. He searched quickly for a napkin to dispose of the piece in his mouth. When there was none, he begrudgingly swallowed it down.
Are you kidding me?
You're kidding!
That is horrible.
It does sound like a gross burger. It had mayonnaise and a thick tomato slice. So, I can have your fries? You can have all of it. God, Sasha, is this all you eat? Have you considered maybe it's your taste buds that are wrong? I highly doubt it. Goodness, you deserve a real meal. Is that the part where you tell me what a real meal is? I'm a pretty decent cook. When you taste what real food is, you won't be able to eat another burger again. You're gonna cook for me? Yes. My kitchen is well equipped. Well, what do you say?
Okay.
Okay, fine, challenge accepted. But don't get upset when you're wrong. Dima chuckled while he glanced out the window. Are you sure you can eat after scarfing down those fries? I think Dima is a decent meal. Don't underestimate me. So is it going to be some rich people food I've never heard of? You'll find out soon.
Are you kidding me?
Holy shit, this is way nicer than my apartment. The sensor lights overhead brightened to reveal a luxurious apartment as Sasha and Dima entered the room. From the sleek marble on the floor, the wide ceiling-to-floor windows that spanned the far wall, the place was far beyond anything Sasha had seen before. Although it looked lived in, everything was spotless and organized like a magazine cover. It almost looked like a hotel suite. Sasha stepped away from the door and peeked around the corner to see this kitchen Dima had spoken of. The sheer size of it was impressive.
Hey.
Take your shoes off, please. What, you don't have one of those robot vacuums to follow me around the house? In spite of his joke, Sasha stepped out of his shoes and used his foot to push them back into the foyer. By the time Dima put his wallet and SIM card in their proper places, Sasha was already walking around the kitchen island. Sasha dragged his fingers across the granite countertop. He eyed the pots and pans that hung from a decorative pot rack over the stove. Of course, every appliance seemed shiny and new. If Dima cooked here as often as he made it seem, the evidence was long gone. To Dima, who saw the apartment every day, watching Sasha so awestruck as he explored the open layout was refreshing. You seem very interested in my kitchen, for someone who doesn't seem to have spent a lot of time in one. Hey, I could be a 5-star chef for all you know. Dima smiled as he walked over to the kitchen, stopping by the bar stools that lined the edge of the island. Dima opened a drawer and started going through it. Somehow I doubt that. Well, despite my dietary interests, I can cook. I couldn't always afford to eat out every night. Well, not until I started moving your product. I guess it's Pav's product though, huh? More or less. It's not wise to come between Pav and his product. Sasha lifted his gaze to meet Dima's. I never noticed how long his eyelashes were. Yeah, sure. A slight flutter in his stomach caused Sasha to look away. He tapped his finger on the granite countertop and drummed away on it. Why the hell am I feeling like this? The fridge. Huh? I need to get to the fridge. Sasha looked to Dima dumbfounded before turning to see he'd been standing directly in front of the fridge. Oh, yeah, sorry. Stepping aside so Dima could squeeze through, Sasha took a few good steps away and leaned his elbow on the counter. So, he cleared his throat. When do you find the time to cook? Don't busy people eat out more? Is that a fact? I wasn't aware. The sarcasm practically dripped from him. Ingredients started to accumulate on top of the island as Dima pulled what he needed from the fridge. He chuckled and shut the door with his foot. It's because I work so much that I need to take better care of my body. Just walk everywhere like me. I walk a fine amount, thank you. Do you have any food allergies I should be aware of? Yeah, lettuce. I'm allergic to boring food. No allergies, got it. Dima grabbed a cutting board and went to work dicing up vegetables. He occasionally glanced up toward Sasha, then back at the onion at hand. Sasha watched Dima slice up the onion, leaning close enough that his cheek brushed against Dima's sweater. After growing bored watching the dicing process, he turned towards the living room and let his gaze sweep over everything. Dang, you sure have a lot of magazines over there. What even are they? Crossing the distance from the kitchen to the entertainment center, Sasha leaned in closer to read the piled up home and food magazines in the cubby. They're things I read when I get a moment. I take it you rarely have a moment. Wow, they're all like nesting magazines. This is domestic as heck. He couldn't help but grin. His fingers flipped through a few pages of designing your bachelor home. What exactly keeps you so busy all the time? Besides running the company, I want to give Sylvania what its own government won't. Infrastructure, transportation, community centers. And since those things take time and money, I'm always busy. Why do you do so much? There are other people trying to gain power and control who don't have Sabinia's best interest in mind. I cannot let the city fall into the hands of people like that. I may not have grown up in the inner city, but Sobania is still my home. Dima used the knife to scrape the diced onion into a small oiled frying pan and moved on to chopping up 2 green peppers. Sounds a lot like what I was cooking today. Sounds like I'll have to drag you around town more then. I might even quiz you. The knife made a very satisfying sound as it sliced through the pepper and hit the wooden board beneath. Did you grow up in the inner city? Yeah, I spent my whole life there. No other place feels like home. Dima smiled down at the cutting board. Somehow that suits you. Yeah? You calling me a street rat? That's not what I meant. Sasha continued to peruse the living room. The place was pretty tidy, with only a few things left about. He looked up at the lights that lined the walls. I didn't expect his place to be so bright. He shifted his gaze away from the lights. He spotted an acoustic guitar sitting in the corner of the room. It's a good thing you were able to pick up that order for your mother, and even better timing. I just hope leaving them on her porch was a good idea. You don't think anyone will take them, do they? Will they? Will they? I doubt it. Sasha tilted his head as he stared at the guitar. I enjoy seeing the city. Your love for it is a little contagious, admittedly. Dima poured more oil into the pan and slid the peppers in with the onions. Using a wooden spoon, he mixed the two and set the burner to medium. I like that little pastry shop. Maybe we can go again sometime. Maybe see a park. I think I'd like that. Please don't quiz me, though. Uh-huh. Sasha walked over to where the instrument was clearly seated in a stand. Now that he was closer, he could see the gentle scores in lacquer and the fading varnish on the neck. Unable to resist, he reached out and plucked one of the strings. The smooth sound vibrated through the hollow instrument, and thanks to the marble flooring, echoed beautifully in the space. Dima blinked and turned his head over his shoulders towards Sasha. What are you doing? Playing the guitar, which I definitely wouldn't have pegged you to do. Sasha reached for the neck of the instrument and lifted it off the stand. He shrugged the guitar strap onto his shoulder. He turned toward Dima, holding the neck in one hand. Check it out. Please put that down. But it's meant to be played. Before Dima had a moment to speak, Sasha had already started to strum the guitar. Clashing notes reverberated through the space. Dima winced at the sound, but Sasha's wide smile made it hard to be mad. Setting the wooden spoon down beside the stovetop, Dima rounded the kitchen island and walked over. Okay, before you break a string, here. He held both hands out for the guitar. Sasha pulled the strap over his head and handed it over, still grinning. Okay, Hotshot, play something for me. Dima took the guitar and stepped toward the couch. Arching a brow at Sasha's demand, he sat down carefully, cradling the instrument in his lap. I'm not that good and... Oh my god, just play something. With a soft chuckle, Dima set the tips of his fingers on the width of the neck. With his other hand, he played a few strings, tentative at first. Sasha sat on the ottoman in front of him, eyes fixated on the guitar. A few notes turned it into a few chords, and a few chords grew into a tender verse. Dima closed his eye. The fullness of the guitar resonated in the space they shared. Before long, both hands were working on the instrument with skilled practice. Sasha had never practically sought out the sound of acoustic instruments, but hearing the strings sing made the tension in his body melt away. He leaned forward, entranced. When he finished, Dima paused. His right hand slowly fell from the strings and rested against the side of the guitar. A hint of red stained his cheek where heat pooled onto his face. Anyway, that's just something I've been working on. Sasha hadn't realized he'd been holding his breath until the music stopped. Dang, okay, you wrote that? Dima looked away and smiled as if embarrassed. Blush still tinting his cheeks, he waved his hand dismissively. It's just a little thing.
Nice.
Teach me how to play. Sasha popped off the ottoman and sat next to Dima on the sofa, hands already reaching for the guitar. Wait, Sasha. As Sasha pulled on the guitar, the strap around Dima's neck became taut. He leaned forward with the movement, chuckling. I'm strapped in, hang on. Freeing his hand from the contraption, he shifted the guitar into Sasha's lap. I'm not sure if I can teach you anything, I'm not an expert. Now that the guitar rested against Sasha, it felt large and awkward. He tried to position his arms to mimic what he thought a guitar player would do. He plucked a note, looked at the neck, pushed his finger on a string, and strummed a chord once more. I don't know what I'm doing. Dima laughed gently and shifted himself beside Sasha. He reached around and holding the guitar's neck as best he could while his body loomed over Sasha's. That's a sweet little scene. Here, place your fingers like this. Without much thought, Dima used his hand to slide Sasha's fingers further up the guitar. Sasha's hand was warm to the touch. There we go, there's the scene I wanted to see. I like that. It's cute. Sasha felt his face heat up. His fingers went limp while Dima positioned them, his focus stolen and transfixed on the feeling of the man's chest pressed to his back. The scent of Dima's cologne was more apparent now that his body was so close. He's so
Sasha.
close. Sasha, try plucking the strings with the other hand. Huh? Oh yeah. With his fingers pressed down, Sasha's chord was notably more harmonious this time. He waited for the sound to slowly fade away, smiling at his triumph. There you go. Slide your hand down a little and move your index finger to the string next to the one there. Sasha moved his right hand down until it bumped the other man's. His eyes looked over to see where his fingers rested on the body of the guitar. He turned his head over his shoulder just enough to catch Dimas' gaze, his heart racing. Memories of being caught in the same golden gaze gave rise to a fluttery sensation in his chest. His lips parted, his eyes softened. They leaned closer. Shit, the onions.
The wontons.
Huh? The wontons!
My spinach puffs.
Ah, my spinach puffs. Is there any other cooks with the smoke alarm going off references I need to make?
Can't think of it.
Almost tossing both the guitar and Sasha off the couch, Dima jumped up and hurried over toward the stove. Ah! Dima fanned the smoke now that billowed toward the air vent. Oh, close call, but they seem to be alright. Just a little burn.
Seriously?
Yeah, the onions are alright, but what about me? Sasha felt lightheaded as he pulled the guitar off and set it on the coffee table. With the smoke alarm threatening to blow their eardrums out, Sasha hurried towards the kitchen. He squeezed past Dima and reached up on his tippy toes, attempting to reach the shrill device.
Ugh.
I get why they put these so high, but... Sasha managed to hit the small reset button on the side of the alarm. There, whoa. Losing his balance, he tipped over to his side and crashed into Dima, who was still trying to save the onions. Hey, careful. The shove knocked Dima closer to the stove. In an effort to sturdy himself, Dima's hand pressed down on the hot burner.
Ugh.
He quickly withdrew his hand and went, shaking with a grimace. Sasha flinched and grabbed for Dimas' hand. His eyes searched for the reddening skin and any signs of serious injury. Without thinking, he brought Dimas' finger to his mouth and wrapped his lips around the digits. He just went, ah, just all 5 fingers. Like, I know they mean in a sexual way, but I just picture just like, ah. I could swallow your fist. Like, it just... Sasha, what are you? The feeling immediately did calm the throb of pain in his finger, but this was in no way sanitary. Still, the image of his finger in Sasha's mouth ignited a completely different thought. What am I doing? The longer Dima stared at the soft mouth wrapped around his fingers, the more his heart began to race. His expression softened. His golden gaze transfixed on Sasha's lips. Sasha's mouth felt so soft. Sasha? His voice was quiet. Sasha could feel how warm his own skin was. It felt different. His name felt different when Dima said it. Sasha's tongue slid down the side of Dimas' fingers as he pulled his lip away. A jolt of electricity shot down Dimas' back at the sensation. Sasha continued holding Dimas' hand, his eyes watchful and half-lidded. The earlier feeling of fluttering returned to his stomach, heat spreading across his face to tint his cheeks pink. He leaned in a little. He smells so good, I'm getting lost in... Before Sasha could process the rest of the thought, Dima took a cautious step closer. His hand, still in Sasha's gentle grip, moved to cup Sasha's cheek. Dima's thumb ghosted along the shorter man's lower lip. Sasha's heartbeat swelled in his reddening ears. Wait, why am I overthinking this? I've hooked up with people plenty of times. This isn't any different. I need to stop thinking so much. May I kiss? Sasha's free hand gripped Dimas' sweater. Stepping forward, he lifted his face and pressed his lips to Dimas's. For a moment, Dimas' surprise left him rigid. He raised his brows at the contact, but gradually eased. His shoulders sank as he wrapped his free arm around Sasha's lower back. Sasha tilted his head, allowing his body to become completely flush with the taller man's. He sighed into the kiss, Dimas' scent overwhelming him. Dima followed Sasha's motions and tightened the embrace, giving him another gentle kiss. Sasha pulled his head back just enough to tease, letting his lips linger for a moment, then returning the kiss with a quiet moan. The sound fueled a heated feeling in Dimas' abdomen. He sighed against Sasha's lips and pulled back. Hushed breathing, a little labored from the kiss, filled with a small space between them. Sasha's entire body was on fire, amplified by the touch of Dimas' hand on his cheek. He leaned his head into the touch, green eyes watchful through their haze. It was met with Demas's lustrous stare. Sasha. He closed his eyes as Dima said his name, feeling his knees grow weak. His voice was barely above a whisper. I want to help Dima fade to black. Sasha bit his own lip. Don't overthink it. Just tell him what you want. Help you relax. Sasha smiled a little, his heart rate finally calming down. I'm trying to keep an eye on the advertisement thing, 'cause if it don't hit by 8:30, I'm going to. Can we, hang out for a bit? Where's the bathroom? Dima blinked and looked toward the white hallway beyond the living room. Motioning over in that direction, Dima rubbed the back of his neck and averted his gaze, despite the small smile he wore on his flushed face. It's at the end of the hallway there. If you want to shower, I can leave the towel in the sink for you. If you want to sleep in something more comfortable, I'll leave a sheet. I'll leave a shirt as well. It's like a 5-star hotel here. Dima smiled, shaking his head with a chuckle. Yeah, well, the 5-star hotel only has one bed, so I'll take the couch. Are you sure? I'm surprised the couch doesn't pull out to a king-size bed. It's not selfish if it's an offer, right? I insist, really. Go shower. Sasha grinned and turned for the hall, disappearing down in search of the bathroom. After a warm and heavily welcome shower, Sasha dried off and dressed in an overly large t-shirt Dima had left for him. It was almost comical how large the shirt was in comparison to his own clothes. Still, he couldn't complain. It was soft and warm. Now clean, tired, satisfied, and still a little hungry, he headed towards the couch where Dima sat, reclined on the armrest and plopped down. What, Jelly, what did you miss? Dima started to cook for Sasha. Sasha tried to play the guitar. They made out. They fade to black, so I'm playing the safe for work version. And now Sasha has showered and is now wearing just a big old Dima shirt to go to bed in. And even though they just fade to black, which means they fucked super, they super fucked, they want to sleep in separate locations. They're not having no post-coital cuddling, which is a real fucking shame. Dima glanced up from the plum pad in his hand and eyed Sasha. I want to be Sasha. Seeing him drown in his shirt he gave made him grin. He glanced back down towards the device in hand. Aren't you tired? You don't have to stay up if you want to go to bed. I'm more hungry than anything. I had the memory of someone promising me dinner. Well, does this mean we have to order food? We have to order food. Oh my god. Sasha pulled his legs up on the couch, a little too excited about the prospect of takeout. He scrambled for the throw blanket and draped over the ottoman, wrapping it around himself. He wiggled onto the couch cushion and beamed at Dima. Dima couldn't help but laugh, though the thought of Sasha staying up with him was a little longer. Was nice.
All right.
He smiled quietly. Order whatever you want. Yeah, now let's see what's on TV. Back at Mishka, the ceiling above the cell Mishka laid in was laden with small cracks and crevices. His eye traced them as time dragged on. What time is it even? He had long since lost track. The pain in his face had subsided only a little, and the sting from the cut reminded him that he was, in fact, alive. Beneath him, the cold concrete was welcoming against the inflamed heat of his body. Purple bruises were forming where his wrists remained tightly bound. As he stared at the ceiling, his half-lidded gaze settled on a water-stained tile. A heavy feeling in his chest bound his heart in a tight squeeze, and every breath felt like a chore. His eyes closed and exhaled slowly. When I close my eyes, it's always you I see. I absolutely destroyed you. Do you even know how to play a racing game? Yeah, well, I just got lucky. You just got lucky. Next time I'll win. Then you'll have to get me some candy from the store. Oh, that's how that works? Does the winner get corner store candy? So where's mine then? No, no, no. You gotta put up a bet for something first. You can't just claim a prize now. Mishka shook his head and smiled. The two had spent all evening playing games, and the sun settling over the city skyline as night approached. The next time, I'll ask for a kiss as my prize. What the heck? Just bid up a favor for a favor or a hot dog or something, you weirdo.
Hey,
No, really, Sasha. I want to tell you something. Hey, Mishka, let's just go get something to eat, okay? I'm, like, really hungry. But no, really, I just want to get something to eat. Mishka's shoulder dropped. He nodded and put on the best smile he could offer. Yeah, okay. Cool. Things are just nice the way they are, you know? Come on, I'm dying for a chili dog. I thought this was set at the same time as that flashback for a second. I was like, oh no. Was the chili dog that bad? Mishka sighed and tried his best to roll onto his side, groaning as a sharp pain radiated up his back. I'm so tired of being alone. So tired of loneliness. But I'm never alone, am I? You're still here, that's good. You're always in my thoughts. He bit his lip, resisting the feeling of a lump forming in his throat. I'm so scared. The sharp, gripping feeling in his chest returned. He gasped and squeezed his eyes shut.
all right.
Here's the training room, where you'll be spending a lot of time with Natalie. She'll teach you how to fight, how to defend yourself, how to move through the city undetected. Any questions so far? Mishka nodded and looked toward the window door of the training room. Peered inside, he glanced back at Dima. How long until my C-card is processed? I got another notice today. Dima scratched at his chin in thought and set his other hand on his hip. I imagine it's going to take a week or so, but I can also expedite it if I make a few phone calls. And you're sure it'll still go through? Because I have to get this card. I can't leave Sabania. I promise I'll have it taken care of. You're a Strexa worker now, and that means you'll be protected, even from deportation. Oh? I see what's happening now. I don't have citizenship, or even a visa. You underestimate me, Mishka.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome officially to Sabania. I don't want to lose you. The door creaked open. Mishka turned his head just enough to glimpse a dark figure sliding into the room, keeping to the wall. Even though it was painful to do so, Mishka propped himself up onto his elbows and used the momentum to sit up. He winced. The figure pushed off the wall and stepped closer. Their pale golden gaze staring down at Mishka, expression calm. Mishka narrowed his eyes and propped his arm onto his knee to rest. How generous of you to come visit. Where's your owner, Ada? There are leash laws in the city, you know. Mishka sneered and wiped at his mouth with the back of his hand, smearing old bloodstains there.
That's enough.
I've come to ask you about Pavel's research. What makes you think I'd say anything, even if I did know? Pavel is working on a new drug. What do you know of it? I've been in here the whole time. How am I supposed to know what the fuck you're talking about? This would have been a drug that's been working on for a while, so what is it? I'm not telling you either way. Is Pavel working on a drug without addictive properties? Mishka grinned and turned his head away with a dramatic shrug of his shoulders. And what good would that do? We all pump drugs into the city so we can fight over who owns it. Wouldn't making something without the risk of addiction be bad for business? Mishka maintained his cheeky sneer. Surprised they let him keep his belt. That's like the first thing they take. Dima would be out of business if that were the case. Ada narrowed his gaze, fingers biting into the metal fencing of the cell. Why do you continue to protect people who clearly do not care about you? Mishka scowled towards Ada and, with a bit of effort, stood up. I could ask you the same thing. Shaking his head, Mishka stepped closer to the cell barrier. You are the strongest, most skilled assassin I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. So why? Why do you protect someone so... It's my job. He has you under his thumb.
I love him.
Mishka stared at the man in front of him, finding that the more he stared, the faster and harder his heart began to race. Anger swept over his entire body.
That's not love. You give your everything to him. And for what?
There's my boy. My boy. Snarling, Mishka pressed close to the barrier and kicked it, slamming his foot into the hard metal over and over. You give and give and give and you give, and he just takes it all. Doesn't give it back, he doesn't even look at you the way you look at him. Ada stepped back and let his arms drift to his sides. His expression remained deadpan while he watched Mishka's tantrum. You can't be without him, and it terrifies you to lose him. You can't see yourself without him because there is no you without him. That is not love. Mishka's knees felt weak, his body heavy. With a choked sob, he found himself sliding down the barrier. His head hung low and pressed against the metal. That isn't love. You're just afraid to leave him. It's not love. The door slammed shut. Alone once again, Mishka brought his legs close to his chest, curling up on the cold concrete. How do we fix this, Sasha? Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of a break. I'm going to get myself some tea. I'm going to save. And we'll be back in a bit, in a quick minito. Give me just a secito. Yeah, I need to know too, but we'll be back. I gotta get tea. Alrighty, we hit this. Post your feet. Post your feet. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Post your feet. My partner refuses to post feet pics. Post your feet. Post your feet. Come on, Barbie, let's go party. Post your feet. But I'm back. My partner refuses to post feet pics. Biscoff and peanut butter might be good together, but it might be weird. I'm just saying, if I'm not a whore, but if someone was like, I'm gonna PayPal you 20, I just want feet pics. Looks like I'm getting feet pics. Looks like I'm getting 20 bucks and feet pics.
Well, $20 per foot pig, okay?
Nah, that'd be like 6.
No.
I'd do it for 6.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, you are a whore, I guess. I am an escort.
Yeah, escort you to the food line while I'm enjoying my... He's wrong. What does he know? He cannot begin to understand me.
Pathetic.
Mishka is pathetic. He knows nothing. Is that a meme? Is that a meme reference? Ada stepped into the dimly lit room he knew so intimately. There was not an ounce of unfamiliarity in this room. Everything was exactly how it has always been. The thought was a soothing one. Ada stepped across the dark carpet and approached Roman from behind. Roman sat a big vanity, surrounded by luminous lights that framed the mirror. In one hand, he clutched a compact. In the other, he patted at the scar across his face with a cotton pad, taking great care to cover every inch. He said nothing at first, only continued to drag the pad against the concealer before dabbing the bridge of his nose. Ada watched him, content with that alone. His gaze shifted towards his own reflection, noting the smallest hint of a smile on his face. That is not love. He tore his gaze away, his hands clasped behind his back. His smile disappeared as quickly as it came. Roman peered over in the direction of Ada's reflection, observing his averted gaze. Did you visit Mishka? His tone was flat and almost uninterested. The inquiry did nothing to divert his attention on the task at hand, and painting his face was one of utmost importance. Ada nodded, his arms dropping to his sides. Philosophically speaking, I'm greatly opposed to hiding a scar like that. It's a rad scar. As someone who has a rad scar, I think you should let your rad scars be shown. The man sat on the compact down and picked up another from the spread in front of him. He opened it and began blending the edges. The scar was almost completely hidden at this point. And he's as uncooperative as before. We're not going to get anything out of him like this. Roman scoffed and used his fingers to brush some powder along the curve of his cheekbone. Doesn't surprise me in the least. If it's one thing Dima does seem to be exceedingly irritating at, it's finding loyal subordinates. Ada stared at the floor and his thoughts drifted. How is he cut healing? How is his cut healing? Ada looked back up. The light from the vanity created a glowing ring in his irises. It's healing, though it will surely scar. Pleased with that answer, Roman let a wicked smile spread from ear to ear. Good. Honestly, that's me being merciful after what that rat did to my face. Ada closed his eyes, grimacing at the memory. You should have let me kill him back then. Roman couldn't help but laugh, the chuckle flashing his perfect teeth. That's right, I had to hold you back, didn't I? Ada nodded, moving an arm to hold the other just above the elbow in a loose grip. He almost took my eye, so you took Dima's. All on your own, too. Ada took a deep breath, but otherwise stood still and quiet. Roman narrowed his eyes on Ada's reflection again. Ada was a quiet man by nature, but this was different. When the silence settled between them, Ada felt a hint of discomfort where there usually would be none. As I understand it, go on. Emerson is looking into the non-addictive drug. Roman sighed with an increased exaggeration, his hand snapping the concealer compact shut. Ada was instantly hushed. I don't want to hear about that right now. After opening the vanity drawer, Roman began to settle the items back inside. The drawer was organized and tidy, every item in its precise place. He eased it closed. Now that his face was taken care of, Roman turned in his seat, eyeing Ada.
Come here.
Come here. But don't. A chill danced down Ada's spine and the back of his neck tingling. Now Ada lifted his gaze and met Roman's. His breath hitched in his throat as if he'd forgotten how to breathe. He obliged and neared Roman, heart racing. Roman reached out and grabbed Ada's wrist. While his grip was firm at first, Roman's fingers brushed at the soft skin of Ada's wrist and loosened. You're on edge. His voice was hushed. Black strands of hair fell over Ada's features as he tilted his head, cautiously lowering himself to Roman's lap. When he met no objection, he leaned close. If it's obvious, then I apologize. Ada. It was something Mishka said, that's all. It will pass. Roman cupped Ada's jaw in his hand and turned his head, bringing his lips near Ada's ear. Don't listen to a word he says. You are perfect. The word held so much weight, hearing it roll off Roman's lips like that. Ada felt a wave of heat spread down his thighs. His exhale was shaky and uneven. Ada turned his nose to settle under Roman's jaw, his eyes closed. Roman smiled and let his hand drag along Ada's back, one finger at a time. You are perfect. Bright and early, in an all-too-familiar purple car pulled into a spot in front of the flower shop. The parking lot was otherwise completely empty, and a close sign poised in the window was a clue as to why. Vadim gripped the wheel of the sports car and leaned his head back on the headrest behind him. He took a deep breath, flexing his fingers. Pav's been working all night. Maybe some flowers will cheer him up. With a newfound determination, Vadim opened the door and stepped out of the car. After locking the door with a satisfying beep, he headed towards the closed shop. This was Strex's shop, after all. They would let him in. He pressed his hands onto the temples and peered in through the window. After spotting Siren near the back, he gently knocked on the glass. Siren, a little startled, hurried over and unlocked the door. The bell chimed as he shoved the door open and peered at Vadim. Oh, Vadim. I didn't expect to see you here so early. Is everything alright?
Press the button.
Yeah, no, everything's fine. I thought I'd stop by to get some flowers. For real this time. Siren paused and stared at the other man for a moment before grinning. He nodded his head and moved to let Vadim in. We're pretty close to open hours anyways. Might as well just leave the door unlocked. The two headed further into the store. Siren made for the cash register and began counting his drawer, while Vadim started down an aisle of roses, surveying each bouquet. Many rows of flowers and ornate arrangements in the shop were no stranger to Vadim. Neither were the strong floral scent he found himself surrounded by. He perused the next aisle carefully, glancing at the bundles and baskets with indecision. Well, what do you know? What do you want, Vadim? I'll be in the front. I'll have to finish counting this drawer before we open. Vadim smiled at the cashier and went back to surveying his choices. That basket might be nice, but don't know right away those tulips are fake, even if they are just for show. Buying flowers for Pavel is like cooking for a chef. Stopping in front of a large arrangement, Vadim tilted his head and contemplated its variety of colors. Purple, orange, blue, and yellow flowers conglomerated together in a festive bunch. Vadim is a real sweetheart. No, that one's too big. I don't even think I could fit it in the coupe. The bell on the front door chimed loudly as another patron entered the store. Good morning. Please let me know if you need anything. Will do, cutie. But it looks like what I'm after is over here. With a smile, Neo tipped their hat towards Siren and stopped short of the front counter. The spurs attached to their high-heeled boots tinkled as they rotated. Neo motioned towards Vadim and gave the countertops a good pat before they turned toward him. Huh. Okay, I'll just be here doodling, working. Yeah, no, this is a non-binary information broker who is morally dubious, I guess. Having finished counting at the cash register, Siren had busied himself doodling on a piece of yellow paper. He stuck his tongue out as he did. When Vadim heard the familiar voice of the informant, he turned and peered over at the top of the aisle. Rounding the corner, he held his hand out with a wide smile. Neo returned the gesture and grasped Vadim's outstretched hand. They shook the man's hand vigorously and chuckled. It's been a while, my friend. I'm glad I was able to find you. Though really, you're not too hard a man to track down. It's good to see you too. Vadim chuckled, squeezed Neo's hand, and setting his other one on top of their grasp just before they both let go. How's the freelance life? Still getting by all right? Neo puffed out their chest and grinned, standing up a little straighter. You know it, and you like working for the man? Vadim shook his head and chuckled, grinning at Neo with a sparkle in his eye. He shrugged in the other's direction. I like having job security, the whole thing. People always need some kind of information they don't want others to know. That's my job security. Neo winked towards their friend. After a moment, they reached into their jacket and started fishing for something. Vadim watched curiously. Speaking of information, so you know that thing you wanted me to look into a while back? Vadim could only chuckle in response. That was a while ago, Neo. I don't think... Neo pulled a manila envelope from their jacket and their eyebrows lifted as they held it up triumphantly. Vadim's grin turned into more of a look of disbelief. The longer that he stared at the envelope, he glanced back at Neo, then to the envelope again. It truly is, my friend. I found something. Ooh, a loud yawn can be heard as one very sleepy Pavel rubbed his eyes with the back of his hand. Groggedly, he glanced down towards the lap where Tulip curled tight and snuggled against him. Don't worry, Tulip. Vadim will only be gone a little while longer. He said he'd bring some tea to wake us up. Morale. No attitude, Missy. He'll be back soon. He gently petted the rotund cat's back and slid a few fingers under her ear for delicate, soft scritches. She leaned her head against his touch and purred happily. Pavel smiled down at her affectionately through heavy eyelids. Oh, there he is! Tulip with a chirp and protested with a chirp and jumped down from Pavel's lap. She scurried away to find a new place to sit. Once the elevator door opened, Vadim hurried out with a basket of pink peonies, all nestled together. In his other hand, he held a drink carrier with what smelt like coffee and tea lattes. Pavel blinked in surprise and slid over the stool he had been sitting on. He took the drink carrier and set it on the table nearby, careful not to spill. Vadim, peonies. That's a little surprising, but they're beautiful. Speaking of surprises, I have one. A grin spread on Vadim's face as he set the basket down next to the drinks and turned towards Pavel. So do I. Closing the distance between them, Pavel lifted up onto his tiptoes and kissed Vadim on the cheek. Another surprise! Weren't the peonies enough? This one's better than peonies. Oh, tell me yours first then. Pavel's arm wrapped around Vadim's forearm, squeezed in a pseudo-hug. Vadim dropped an envelope down on the table in front of them. What's this? The surprise. I think we have a lead. As I said, peonies. Yeah, that's what I said, peonies.
Peonies.
No, not Pyrenees. That's a dog.
Peonies.
Yeah, peonies. That's what I'm saying. How am I not saying am I saying peonies wrong?
You were saying peonies.
Oh, well.
But also, Jelly, you know that you like mispronouncing words.
Yeah.
Even
Wait.
when you don't know how to say it.
Well, you know what they say about flowers. About peonies. Peonies nuts. Dumbfounded, Pavel looked between the envelope and Vadim. Wait, a lead? Like a lead? Did someone spot her? The bodyguard pulled up a chair next to Pavel's stool, smiling with a contagious excitement. Oh, I got a thing go off. I didn't.
JCF 306 is now following.
Thank you, Jay. Sorry, I'm running with the new setup, and I didn't see my new follow. But thank you for the follow. The bodyguard pulled up a chair next to Pavel's stool, smiling with contagious excitement. The envelope seal had already been broken. Open it! Laughing, Vadim pulled out an article snippet, and a few blurry photos that might have been taken from a cheap sofa. Vadim tapped the article. A small group of cloaked suspects were seen leaving the governor's personal estate on the night his body was found. He lifted his brows and smirked at Pavel before continuing. Further investigations will be conducted alongside the allegations of the governor's involvement with human trafficking. Pavel tapped the article wide-eyed and damn near toppled over the stool he was sitting at as he stood.
My God!
Vadim, this is in Greece! They spotted the group in Greece? I have a family in Greece. Now you have a family in Greece. We have family in Greece. What are we waiting for? I have so many things to pack and so many notes to write for someone to water plants, and oh, you finally get to meet my mom.
Pav?
Easy, okay? We don't know yet if that's her. We'll need to look into it. Besides, we can't go anywhere until you finish Oh. Yes. Vadim certainly turns into Pavel. That's fun. Besides, we can't go anywhere until you finish perfecting the NS.
Oh!
Well then, pack your bags, mister, 'cause I... Pavel hurried to another lab table and spread his arms out. Arranged on top of a sleek metal was a mess of beakers, burners, and vials. Have finished! Surprise! Wait, you finished it? And you didn't nap? Yeah, the preclinical testing stage proved to be really promising, and every test conducted so far has been incredibly efficient. I'm certain this is it, Vadim. Spinning on his heel, Pavel grinned from ear to ear. But that's not even the best part. What's the best part? You going to bed after this? Pavel's smile was nearly as wide as it could be. Initially, we were looking into how the new formula works on neurotransmitters in the brain, with the reward system and dopamine. And the goal is to figure out a way to turn the volume down, so to speak, on the trial drug's reward signals.
So,
Well, basically, we were able to isolate the non-addictive properties of the strain and amplify them, so... Taking a deep breath, Pavel's grin turned into uncontainable joy. He was almost vibrating.
It made way more sense to turn our efforts into a pharmaceutical.
Oh, that fights addiction.
Strexa has made a pharmaceutical drug to combat addiction. We aim to release it soon in recovery centers within the city.
What the fuck is that thing? What's that Dracula? Like, that has not appeared yet, and that is, I don't know why, it's setting off my flight or fight response. Strexa aims to release it soon in recovery centers within the city. This way, we can begin to take bigger steps towards helping the city of Sobania and its people. Dima's hands rested on either side of a wooden podium in front of him, the attached microphone amplifying his voice. For far too long, we idly sat by while the people in our city have suffered. This new anti-addiction drug could be the first step in a long road to healing for addicts across Sobania. Cameras flickered and shuddered at the end of every sentence, poised and ready at a moment's notice. Strexa will completely fund the clinical trials in the next stages of development for this breakthrough drug. Beyond that, we will be partnering with the mayor to ensure the drug is both widely available and low cost.
All right.
I'll take any questions at this time. The crowd erupted, clamoring to get a word or question in. Roman's thumb pressed the volume button of the sleek plum pad held until it was muted. He stared at the illuminated screen as the press conference came to an end and the stream cut out. Ada and Riker stood quietly by. The room was silent, save for the crackling flame in the modern fireplace. Sir, is there anything I can... The sound of Roman's growing laughter silenced Riker. He's practically spitting on me! This motherfucker is actually spitting in my face! Roman let out another chuckle as he stood from the sofa, tablet still in hand. That's just fantastic, isn't it? Roman lifted a hand to run through his hair, stopping near the back and tightening his fingers into his roots. His other arm dropped to his side, still cradling the plum pad. Whipping around towards Riker, Roman's smile was wide and provoking. He tilted his head back in loud laughter. Riker felt a prickle at the back of his neck and mirrored a smile. He nodded and let out a faint chuckle. First, this guy decides to blow up the warehouse, right? And then... Roman spun on his heel, approaching the large glass window and the curtain that covered it. His laughter shook his shoulders. And then he decides to brick my business? You want to take away our marketing for what? So you control my city? Can you believe this guy? Riker nodded and continued smiling, his laughter growing into accompanying Roman's. He shook his head and rubbed the back of his neck. Yeah, well, the guy is something else, huh? Ada stood silently by, ever observing and watchful. Roman neared the countertop and leaned against it, his teeth flashing in a wicked grin.
The best fucking part. The best fucking part is... my fucking brother is helping him do it.
Without warning, Roman's wicked smile contorted into a snarl, and he slammed his plum pad into the marble counter he had been leaning on. Riker backed up, heart racing. How the fuck did he convince Ilya to turn his back on me? Yeah, It's Pavel or it's Dima. What? Is Roman's brother.
I'm guessing it's Pavel.
Yeah, like it makes sense to be Pavel, but at the same time, he's like, this guy burned down my warehouse. He's breaking my business, and he had my brother help. But Pavel's the one who's directly bricked his business and directly burnt down the warehouse. But that, as a business decision, that would be a Dima thing.
Yeah.
So it could be either fucking way. I don't fucking know.
Well, right now he's yelling about Dima.
Slammed his plum pad into the counter once again, cracking the screen on impact. Dima's fucking me over! How fucking dare he, after everything? I made him who he is! Another slam. This time the device splintered into several shards of debris. Pieces of glass and metal scattered across the counter surface. Ada exhaled slowly and watched Roman, his gaze softening. Riker was rigid, every hair on the back of his neck, standing on end. His lips tightened into a thin line as his pulse was racing. Sir, if I could... They're both looking down on me! Roman slammed his hand into the remaining shards of the plumb pad, sending more debris flying into the counter. Blood trailed down the sides of Roman's hands, large droplets blotting the glass pieces. Ada closed the distance between them without a second thought and reached for Roman's bloodied hand. He turned Roman's palm over, checked to make sure there were no shards embedded everywhere. After a few seconds of allowing Ada to look his hand over, Roman swiftly pulled it back and cursed under his breath. I should have expected this, right? Ilya always finds a way to undermine me. He always has. He's not better than me. He's not better than anybody, mayor or not. Those rats' new addiction is fueling our operations. Demon himself relies on it. There's no stronger market. This is absolutely... Then sudden silence. Roman curled his hand into a fist and brought it up to his mouth, his eyes closing as he took a deep breath. There's still time to correct this misstep. Ada stepped forward and started for the door. Dima has forced my hand on this. It's time we paid our guest one last visit. I'm done being nice. Ooh, are we gonna get a finger, or are we gonna get a chunk of ear mailed? Like, what body part is gonna get mailed to the Strexa building? No. This afternoon, sun streamed in through the windows as Sasha awoke in an unfamiliar living room. At first, grogginess clouded the realization of where he was. He rubbed at his eyes with his palm and yawned. After rolling his head to the side to stretch his neck, Sasha sat up and glanced around. You over here losing it? When it hit him, his eyes widened. A tingle ran up the back of his spine, and he quickly scrambled up off the couch and stood up. I fell asleep on the couch? In Dima's apartment? He ran his hand through his hair and exhaled loudly. What time is it? The apartment was quiet, almost eerily slow. Takeout containers were left stashed on top of the coffee table, but otherwise not a thing looked out of place. Sasha glanced towards the long hallway. Where'd he put my clothes? Taking another quick look around the luxurious space, Sasha tiptoed down the hallway toward the bathroom. While he was moving, he didn't want to make any noise was beyond him. He's probably in the bathroom. He approached the bathroom door and pressed his head close, trying to hear if anyone was inside. When it sounded just as deserted as the rest of the apartment, Sasha grabbed the handle and pushed the door open. No one. Nothing. Sasha blinked and stepped inside the room. Sasha's clothes from yesterday were cleaned and folded neatly on the vanity countertop. While he couldn't remember exactly where he left his clothes, he knew he hadn't left them there. Are you serious? He folded them? He couldn't help but grin as he swiped the clothes, immediately undoing their folded perfection. Haphazardly, he threw them on, did his business, and washed his hands. He stared at his fingers beneath the soapy water and rubbed at the tips slowly. May I kiss? Sasha shook his head and quickly shut off the water and reached for a hand towel nearby. God, it was just a kiss! It was only a kiss! Come on! How did it end up like this? Shaking his head as if that would work to dispel the thought, Sasha dried his hands and hurried out of the bathroom. After walking down the hall and back into the living room, he glanced around for his phone. Where did I... Oh, she's got a cute... I like her phone picture. It's cute. Hey, Sasha, I didn't see you in the cafeteria this morning, so I thought I'd text. We're all meeting up at the Intel room. Natalie's here. You did it. Really? Okay, I'm on my way. Don't forget to eat, or grab a bagel or something. She really came. Sasha's lips curled into a smile as he gripped his phone tighter. We're finally getting somewhere. Sasha pocketed his phone and swiped a takeout container from the coffee table.
Nice.
Still looks edible to me. He shoveled some leftover lo mein into his gob while he headed for the door. Still unfamiliar with the layout of the massive building, Sasha did his best to try and remember where everything was. As he walked down the hallway, takeout in hand, Sasha saw a familiar crop of navy hair. His stomach fluttered. Quickly, he tossed the container into a small trash bin and stopped short of Dima. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand and stood up a little straighter. Dima was leaning against the wall, glancing up to see Sasha walking towards him. At first, Dima averted his eyes and lifted a hand to rub the back of his neck. He cleared his throat.
Hey,
Did, you sleep well? Sasha stared blankly for a moment, fighting the urge to grin. Yeah, the couch is pretty comfortable, I guess. Oh, right, well, I tried to wake you so you could take the bed, but you slept like a rock. Too much lo mein, I assume. Sasha couldn't help but shake his head, chuckling. Dima's hair seemed a bit more tame than usual, and Sasha couldn't help but notice the sheen coming off of it from the bright lights. Why is your hair like that? Oh yeah. I had a thing earlier this morning, a press conference. That's why I wasn't around when you woke up. Sasha reached up and started to ruffle Dima's styled hair, his natural texture returning. It's not bad. Just all shiny and, I don't know, business looking. Dima chuckled behind closed lips at Sasha's response. Sasha looked down at his feet and shoved both hands into his pockets.
So...
Indigo sent me a text that said Natalie was here? Dima, as if a light bulb came on, motioned towards the door to their right. Yep, she's in that room. There. She better have brought Meatball with her. Are you going in? Sasha pointed towards the door, unable to hide his smile anymore. He tilted his head curiously. Oh, right, absolutely. In a few minutes. Sasha's brow tensed a little at that. Do you not want to go in? He observed Demas's expression, a little skeptical. Is it because Natalie's in there? He glanced between the door and Sasha, lifting his brows. Of course I want to go in, I'm just allowing Indigo and Natalie some time to catch up. Uh-huh. Sasha shook his head and reached for the door. Once opened, he headed inside, Dima following close behind, and the two quietly moved into the room. Only, neither one could fit through the door while the other tried to squeeze past. Their shoulder bumped into one another, both grinning while they attempted to wiggle through the doorframe. Sorry. You first. Sasha slipped into the meeting room, looking sheepish.
Hi!
Oh good, Dima, you found him. Indigo clasped her hands together with a smile. She was seated near Natalie, who loomed over a large digital map that projected across the table before them. Guess I was pretty persuasive. Yeah. Natalie waved Sasha off. She eyed Dima and nodded before focusing her attention back down to the map. Dima nodded in return. He rested his hand against Sasha's lower back and ushered the other man further in the space. Sasha glanced over his shoulder at Dima and grinned. Stop pushing, I know how to walk. Just gently reminding you is all. Chivalry's not dead, apparently. Pavel stared at Sasha, concentrating on his friend. Accompanying his stare was a slow-growing grin. What? What's going on here? That entrance, right? That entrance indeed. Sasha averted his gaze, his hand settling on his hip. Nothing, you weirdo. Pavel let loose a laugh and eyed Sasha closely. I see more than you think. Dima, flustered, quickly headed towards the others and ignored most of Pavel's antics. Pavel bounded over, tugging Sasha along by the hand. As he did so, excitedly, he pointed to a particular place on the map.
Anyway...
Here's where we're sending out the first clinical trial shipment tonight. I'm so excited. Pavel grabbed Sasha's arm, giving him an excited shake. Sasha, now freed from Pavel's grip, slid both hands back into his pant pockets. Vadim and I are headed there in a bit to secure everything, get it all ready. I'm sure Dima already told you about it. Told me about what? About the shipment, obviously. Huh? The what shipment? The shipment of NS for the clinical trials. We'll have to send it out to a lab to get the trials started. Wait, so you finished it?
My god!
Oh my god, Sasha, where have you been all morning? I finished it last night. There was a press conference about it this morning and everything. He was sleeping, remember? Sasha looked at the map again where Pavel had pointed. So you finished the drug and you're shipping it out of the harbor? Yeah, the harbor. Like on a boat? A big-ass boat! Indigo simply shook her head with a smile and patted the purple-haired man's back. I love you, Pav. What kind of beast can produce that much product in such short time? Natalie sighed and straightened up. The idea of being rushing the press conference was to hopefully keep Ecto distracted. Ideally, the news about NS will give us some cover to go in and extract Mishka. That's the idea, yes. It's a bold move, but you know Roman best. We don't have much time then.
Listen.
Pav, I don't know how you pulled it off. This prescription drug could change a lot of things for the city. That's what we're hoping. Dima turned his gaze towards Natalie and sighed. Natalie, I can't stress enough how glad I am that you're here. With your help, finding Mishka is... To be clear, I only came because of Mishka. If you lose him... I know. This is my mess to deal with. I was careless, both Sobania and with Mishka. Dima averted his gaze.
I'm not the only one you need to make amends with, Dima. Just do better. You have the means. You just need to do better. For Sobena.
Oh, okay, it's pronounced Sobena. I've been adding like 3 extra vowels there at the end.
You always do.
It's more fun that way. Dima nodded softly and glanced at the
If
table.
this drug works,
Nothing is sacred with you.
Nothing is sacred with me. Natalie's voice was soft while she stared down at the map, her fingers slowly brushing along the intricate road and highway system. Her eyes lifted to stare at Dima.
it will be a step in the right direction.
Pavel watched Natalie for a moment just before he reached forward and took her hand in his. We can start providing real help for Sobena, the way you always envisioned, and it all starts with the clinical trials. Natalie rolled her eyes playfully, but made no moves to remove her hand.
So,
Vadim and I are gonna head to the drop-off point in a little bit, get everything ready, you know. I'm so excited. It's like sending your baby off to daycare. I don't think it's like, you know what, it's fine. It's your baby, I guess. Please don't have a baby. What? I'd be an amazing father. Where's Vadim anyway? He's refilling his weapons before we head out.
Hey.
Was refilling. Everything's ready now. Vadim leaning to the door frame of the meeting room. Refilling. Pavel laughed and reached up to ruffle Sasha's hair a little. His daggers are laced with the poison that I make. Just has to fill these little containers in the handle. It's pretty cool, really. How did I expect anything less? It's super deadly too. Just one stab and I'll probably kill you in 5 minutes. It was tricky to make it at first. Like there was one time I spilt it on myself and almost...
Pav, I can and will leave without you.
Baby, I'm telling a story! Despite his protests, Pavel waved a quick goodbye and bounced over to Vadim. Like, Pavel is my favorite. But far and wide, my favorite character. Well, good luck with that shipment, you two. And be sure to figure things out while you guys are securing it.
Listen.
Like, I get it, Indigo's more attractive physically, but Pavel's more fun. Yes, stay safe, and Vadim, stay on your toes. We will, and you guys find Mishka. Bring him home. We will do anything we can. Keep us informed and updated. Good luck. With a soft smile, Vadim nodded towards Natalie as Pavel made his way over. Once out, Vadim closed the door behind them, though Pavel's voice could still be heard from the hallway. Natalie let her shoulders relax and turned towards Dima.
Okay.
We don't have much time to figure this out, so I suggest we get started. Dima and Indigo nodded. All three began to study the map before them.
All right.
Indigo, what have you got? Indigo motioned to a segment of the map using her index finger to pinpoint a specific location. Mishka's tracker stopped sending updates in this area. Around that time, Vadim said Mishka is no longer where we received the distress signal. Right, we immediately started tracking suspicious vehicles in that area and investigated their destinations. We've had repeated run-ins with Ectos at this spot, so my guess is that it's a hot spot for them. We sent Jonas to investigate since it seemed very likely Mishka was taken there, but we were unsuccessful. Ugh. Still, that confirms we were likely in the right spot since Ada was present. Before that, though, Jonas was able to get in easily, so I don't think they expected him to be there. Then he must have been onto something. Indigo began circling areas on the map with her finger, leaving small notes where she could. I haven't been out that way in a while, otherwise I would have noticed any increased activity. There's a higher chance they'll expect us if we approach this from the same angle, so Natalie may need to run another sweep of the area and assess our options. Not a problem. It should be an easy in and out operation. Sasha watched the others delve into the map as he rubbed his arm. What am I even doing here? His gaze dropped to the floor. It's not like they need a stand-in informant anymore now that Natalie's here. I really don't know how I can help. Sasha took a deep breath, his chest growing tight. He leaned in to see the map, though he couldn't get a look with everything so close together. That's so stupid. Why did I think I could just save him like I'm some trained agent? Sasha's face flushed as he felt suddenly overcome by his thoughts. He backed away from the other three, his heart sinking into the floor. Making as little noise as possible, Sasha walked to the door and quietly stepped out. He could still hear the muffled sound of conversing from beyond the door. The sound of the door gently opening and closing stole Demas's attention away for a moment. He glanced in that direction. He frowned. Where is Sasha going? Interesting. Outside of that intel room and just a few steps further down the hall, Sasha sat in defeat. He had pressed his back to the wall and slid down, his head buried in his hands. The muffled conversation of the meeting could still be heard beyond the door nearby. Everyone seemed to be involved in that task at hand. Everyone seemed so determined to save Mishka. There's literally nothing I could do to help. They all know what they're doing in there, and I'm just taking up space. I don't know how to do any of that shit they do. I shouldn't have come. I shouldn't be here. Sasha frowned, and his hands tightened into fists. Ugh. This is so stupid. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed, filling Sasha's mind with a kind of static while his thoughts spiraled. He curled his legs closer to his chest and rested his head against his knees. Why did I even try? Mishka, I'm sorry, I can't do anything. A feeling of wanting to cry swelled within him. His throat ached with the strain of holding back. Sasha's fingers tightened against the fabric of his sweats as he let out a shaky sigh. He pulled his bottom lip in with his teeth. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't the time they want me to touch the phone. Please just leave me alone. Sasha pulled the vibrating phone from his pocket, eyes widening as he read the lock screen. No fucking way. His fingers started to tremble as he unlocked his phone. Now I could unlock it. You've been quite busy these past few days, Sasha. Good to see you're recovering. Who is this? You'd be happy to know that Mishka is recovering well too. What the fuck? Who is this? What about you, Sasha? I keep hearing your name, but we've yet to meet properly. Mishka said so much about you, you really should come see him. Do you have Mishka? He's been keeping me company, yes. But I think he's well overstayed his welcome. I'll be willing to return him, but Strexa is such a long trip. Why not meet me halfway? Where's the halfway? You're not really that fun to talk to. The Violet Line will bring you to the Westvale station. I'm on a tight schedule, so you'll be on the 2000 train if you don't want to miss him. How do I know you're not lying? You don't. Oh, one more thing. I'm only offering one ticket. I assume you understand. Bring a friend with you and you'll be picking Mishka off the tracks in pieces. Let's keep this between us. Sasha had been so focused on his phone, rereading every message, that he hadn't noticed the single tear that trailed down his face. That one was to irritate. Mink. Who the fuck was that? Sasha struggled to breathe. He felt his chest grow heavy and tight with each passing second. How am I supposed to know if this person really has Mishka? What if this is just a setup? What if I... Sasha closed his eyes, causing the remaining tears to spill over. What if something happens to Mishka? Or me? Blurry eyes opened the screen once more. He could hardly keep his hand from trembling. They sent this text to me. Just me. Sasha took a deep breath as he tried to pull himself together. Wasn't this what he wanted? To help save Mishka? I'm the only one who could do this. I'm the only one who can do this. He brought himself to his feet, hugging the wall to keep himself steady. I have to help him. Sasha's feelings of urgency drowned out his fear, and he found himself briskly walking down the hallway. The voices from within the meeting room grew fainter. Just as Sasha walked away, the door to the intel room opened quietly. Dima leaned out the doorframe, turning his head in both directions. When he had spotted Sasha disappearing around the corner of the hall, he stepped out of the room completely. Sasha. It was to no avail. The other man was too far now. Where is he going? This meeting isn't over. Without much thought, he instinctively followed. Sasha hurried along the sidewalk and made it to the subway. He couldn't help checking the time on his phone. Is this a good time, Mink? For a cliffhanger, or should I go a little further?
Go a little further, it'll be more dramatic.
Okay.
If you want a really dramatic cliffhanger.
Yeah, we want a really dramatic cliffhanger. The roar of trains flying by filled the entire underground space. It was so loud that even Sasha's rushed footsteps down the stairwell were quiet in comparison. Rushing after Sasha in an attempt to catch up, Dima headed down the stairs of the subway. The subway? Why would he be taking the subway? The subway is dangerous at night. What is going on in here? Is he a mole? Is he meeting someone here? Dima dipped behind a pillar and made sure to stay undetected as he followed Sasha. He was fully invested in finding out just where the other man was headed now. That doubt had crept in. Frantically, Sasha scanned the neon signs above him. Once he spotted the Violet Line, he rushed down the platform. It was completely empty. Not one person was standing around, not waiting for the train. No one but Sasha. The rumble of the trains quieted down as they passed, and all became eerily still. It's not too late, is it? Sasha gripped his phone tighter. I didn't tell a single person where I'm going. I'm on my own here. 8 p.m. The distant screech of his approaching train echoed through the tunnel as it rounded the corner, filling the underground tunnel with a cold wind. Sasha watched the windows flash by him as the train came to a stop, but he didn't notice a single passenger inside. When the doors opened, no one stepped out. He walked inside into the empty train, and the doors almost immediately closed behind him. The hair on the back of his neck stood on end. Seeing that Sasha had been boarded on an empty train, Dima was quick to push through the doors of one of the last cars. He hunkered down out of sight and gripped the metal railing tight once inside. There's no way he's working for someone else, right? This isn't right. Something's not right. Sasha wouldn't... He isn't the type to, right? Are you gonna tell me when?
Yeah.
Okay. Sasha couldn't sit still even if he tried.
Though I figured you would know.
Oh, is it that dramatic?
Yeah.
His head was constantly on a swivel despite his reflection being the only one in the train's dark windows. Every bump, jostle, and noise along the way had him on edge. Dima stayed low while the train rocked along the tracks. Countless scenarios played out in his head, all as wildly imaginative as the last. As the train doors opened, Sasha was met with silence. The platform was completely desolate. It was the same as before. Dima cautiously rose and peered in the now open doors of the train car. Spotting Sasha's back, he swiftly moved to a large column on the platform and pressed against it, keeping it out of sight. Why am I hiding? I could just ask him myself what's going on, but what if he's meeting someone here? Maybe I should stay out of sight. Sasha hesitated to look over to the edge of the platform he stood on. He didn't want to see something like Mishka's body down there. The mere thought sent shivers down his spine and caused a horrid twist in his gut. He glanced up at the subway signs and checked that this was the right station, anxiously clutching his chest. Demas's fingers flexed on the pillar. He closed his eyes and turned his head, trying to listen for any sounds of another person. For now it seemed Sasha was alone. This is bad. Something isn't right here. So you can follow orders. I can see why Demas keeps you around.
You can stop here if you want.
No, Roman and Sasha following his orders. All right, let's take a look at this. Let's go check out Let's go check out Kiri. I've been liking Kiri lately. She's doing some Goblin Bob Rawson. But we'll finish this shit tomorrow. Love ya.
Hey, what's up? JD Coffee Streams. Welcome. How you doing? How was your stream? What'd you get up to? Also, welcome, Raiders. It is Gobble Bob Ross. Yeah, so what had happened was I did a subathon, and one of the goals was I will listen along to a Bob Ross video, just audio only, and try to do it in an art program, and see how close we get to the end. Thank you for the shout out, Saturn. I appreciate it. Getting it before I even asked. Love it. So I'm doing a Bob Ross cosplay to wear during that stream. So this is what we've got so far. We got the denim to honor this outfit, the denim apron. We've got a nice wig covering up my hair. We're painting on a paint beard, which is what we're currently working on. Unfortunately, my tablet decided it didn't want to work anymore. Loudly cursed. Or visual novel fun. Had to leave them on a cliffhanger. Oh, hell yeah. Cliffhangers are always good. But yeah, we're painting on a beard right now. But my tablet decided to just like shit the bed on us. So we're doing this all by mouth.